The wheel of time turns, and ages come and pass, leaving memories that become legend. Legend fades to myth, and even myth is long forgotten when the age that gave it birth comes again. In one age, called the Third Age by some, an age yet to come, an age long past, a wind rose in the mountains of mist. The wind was not the beginning. There are neither beginnings nor endings to the turning of the wheel of time, but it was a beginning. The Wheel of Time is a 14-book-long series by Robert Jordan, each book consisting of 700 to 900 pages. And I have read one of these 14 books. I've read 300,000 of these 4.4 million words. So I just finished the first book of The Wheel of Time recently. It's called The Eye of the World, and I wanted to do a review on it. So The Eye of the World is the first book in The Wheel of Time, a very incredibly long book series. We start out with a farm boy called Rand who lives in the peaceful village of the Two Rivers with his friends Mat and Perrin. But then one day the peace of their village is all of a sudden destroyed by an evil presence that enters it, and Rand and his friends are all of a sudden thrust into an adventure. First of all, the pacing of this book was reasonably steady. There were a lot of slow parts, especially towards the middle, but never once did I feel bored reading this book. Another thing that I noticed with this book is that the descriptions of characters and places can be very long-winded. Like, it'll spend 2 pages describing an inn that they stay in, and then they leave that inn the next day. Another thing is that every single character has a name. Literally every single character. Every soldier, every bartender, every random person on the road that they speak to. Pretty much everyone in this book, Robert Jordan gave a name, even if they're not a very significant character. So the descriptions were very long-winded, but that definitely didn't ruin my enjoyment of the book. I still enjoyed it quite a lot. I want to speak a little bit about the characters because they were very, very interesting. I think that all the characters are very well written if they're all pretty dumb. I'm gonna be honest, a lot of these characters are kind of dumb. They make the worst decisions, which, I mean, it makes sense, they're all teenagers. Pretty much all the main characters in this book had very low intellect, and they made the worst kind of decisions that led to the worst consequences. But I still think the characters were very well written, and I still did like a lot of the characters. You can also really see how complex these characters are, but they make some pretty terrible decisions, and just I feel like there's a lot more to these characters than first meets the eye. And of course, I've only read the first out of 14 books in this series, but the characters, there's just so much more about them that hasn't been revealed, even about the main character, that I'm very intrigued by. The characters were very well written. I liked them. I liked all the characters, even if they made some pretty terrible decisions. And also, there was a lot of character development. You can really see what these characters went through and how they developed from the beginning all the way to the end of the book. Now, I absolutely love this book. I enjoyed it so much. Never once was I bored reading it. Didn't take me terribly long to read it too because I was just hooked on the story. I love the story. I love the characters. I feel like the book still has some flaws, but not big enough flaws to ruin my enjoyment of the book. I enjoyed it quite a lot. But here are some reasons why I could see people not liking this book. The first is that the story isn't original. The plot was fairly predictable throughout. I pretty much knew what was going to happen in the next chapter every time I read it, but I still enjoyed it very, very much. I was still hooked on the story. Even though the plot was a little bit predictable and the story idea wasn't very original, still a fantastic book. And again, like I said in my previous video, which you can watch if you want, don't judge stories by their originality, because stories can have a very unoriginal plot but still be an absolutely fantastic story, and the same can be said for this book. The plot was very well structured. And the thing with this book that was original was the magic system. The magic system in this book is so complex and so deep, and there's just so much to it. I'm very intrigued by it, and I definitely look forward to reading the rest of the series and learning more about these complex characters and the deep magic system. The story was evenly paced, and I loved the world that Robert Jordan created in this book. Enjoyed the entire thing so much. I'm also fascinated by a lot of the lore behind this world. Robert Jordan went to great lengths to build up the lore and history behind this world, but I still probably only know like 1/10 of all the lore to this world, and so I really want to learn more of it by reading the rest of the series. Even though the plot was predictable, this story had me hooked and lost in the story. I will definitely keep on reading this series, and I highly recommend this series and this book to any fantasy fan, to any fan of J.R.R. Tolkien, Brandon Sanderson, J.K. Rowling. I can pretty much guarantee that this will be your next favorite book series. And I think this book series, if all the books can be as good as this one and maybe a bit better, then I think this might actually become one of my favorite book series. I love this first book so much. I'm actually going to start the second book today. I just ordered it on Amazon, and it's supposed to be coming later this afternoon, so I'll definitely be starting the second book today. This is an exciting and riveting tale, and even though it is like a pretty beefy book, it's 700 pages, it felt way shorter because I was just lost in the story, lost in the world, lost in everything. I had such an enjoyable time with this book, and I definitely look forward to reading the rest of the series. I'm giving this book a 9 out of 10, and I highly recommend this to any fan of fantasy. This might very well be your next favorite read. There's this one review in the front of this book that says, "This intricate allegorical fantasy recalls the works of Tolkien because of its intensity and warmth." I completely agree with that. Now, Tolkien, of course, still a better author than this book. Without Tolkien, this book might never have been written. Robert Jordan even said that what he wanted to accomplish with the first Wheel of Time book was to sort of write his own version of The Lord of the Rings. Tolkien will always be my favorite author, but man, this book was so good. Tolkien is still way better. I still think the lore of his world is way better. You know, he invented 14 entire languages for his world. That's incredible. Tolkien had an immense amount of passion for the world of Middle-earth that he created. But I agree, this book reminded me of Tolkien. I felt like I was reading Tolkien through certain parts of it. It's sort of like a mix between modern fantasy and classical fantasy, which I really loved. So, 9 out of 10, recommend it, thoroughly enjoyed it, and I'm starting the second book today. So, that was my review for The Eye of the World by Robert Jordan, a fantasy book that I highly recommend. Well, I hope that you enjoyed watching this video. Thanks for watching it, and for now, farewell.